Imagine for a moment that we're not on Earth. Imagine standing on the surface of Mars, watching the dust blow gently across the reddish landscape, knowing that millions of miles away, Earth is a tiny blue dot in the distance. Could this be the future of humanity, or is it merely a dream too distant to ever come true? Well, by the end of this video, we'll explore just how close or far away we are from making that dream a reality. Stick around because the story of how we went from small rockets to autonomous rovers on other worlds might surprise you in ways you never expected. And who knows, by the end, you might even find yourself asking, when can I book my ticket to Mars? Our story begins in the early 20th century, long before anyone had ever imagined sending a machine, let alone a human, into space. It starts with dreamers and visionaries, people who gazed at the stars and thought, what if? One of the earliest pioneers in rocketry was Robert Goddard, an American physicist who believed that rockets could one day take us to the moon. In 1926, he successfully launched the world's first liquid-fueled rocket, an achievement that paved the way for the space race decades later. But before we delve into the space race itself, let's pause and consider how extraordinary this idea was at the time. Humanity had barely begun to fly. The Wright brothers' first flight had taken place just over 2 decades earlier, in 1903. And yet, here was Goddard proposing that we could leave the planet altogether. His work wasn't widely appreciated at the time. Many thought his ideas were pure science fiction, but history would prove him right. Fast forward to the 1950s, and the world was on the brink of an entirely new era. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union was heating up, and both nations saw space as the next frontier for proving their technological superiority. The Soviet Union struck first, launching Sputnik 1 on October 4, 1957, the first artificial satellite to orbit the Earth. The Sputnik launch sent shockwaves across the globe. If the Soviets could put a satellite in orbit, what else were they capable of? The answer came just a few years later when Yuri Gagarin became the first human to travel into space aboard Vostok 1 in 1961. His 108-minute flight around Earth marked a turning point in human history. For the first time, we had left our home planet and returned safely. Gagarin's journey was brief, but it symbolized humanity's ability to break free from the bonds of Earth's gravity. Not to be outdone, the United States ramped up its efforts, leading to President John F. Kennedy's famous speech in 1961, where he declared that the U.S. would land a man on the moon before the end of the decade. And they did. On July 20, 1969, Apollo 11 touched down on the lunar surface, and Neil Armstrong uttered those unforgettable words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." The moon landing was more than a triumph of engineering. It was a symbol of what humanity could achieve when we set our sights high. For a brief moment, it seemed like anything was possible. The stars weren't so far away after all. But what came next? After the Apollo missions ended in 1972, many wondered what the future of space exploration would hold. The 1970s and 1980s saw the development of space stations like Skylab and the birth of the Space Shuttle program. The Space Shuttle was revolutionary in its own right. Designed to be reusable, it allowed NASA to launch multiple missions, including deploying satellites, conducting scientific research, and assembling the International Space Station (ISS). The ISS itself deserves special mention. Launched in 1998, the ISS is a collaborative project involving 15 nations and has served as a continuous human presence in space for over 2 decades. Astronauts aboard the ISS have conducted thousands of experiments that help us understand how life functions in the microgravity environment of space. But as impressive as the ISS is, it's still orbiting relatively close to Earth, about 250 miles above the surface. The real breakthroughs were happening much farther away. While human spaceflight stagnated somewhat after the moon landings, robotic exploration flourished. NASA's Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 spacecraft, launched in 1977, have traveled farther than any other human-made objects, sending back data from the farthest reaches of our solar system. They've given us invaluable insights into planets like Jupiter and Saturn, and are now journeying through interstellar space, over 14 billion miles from Earth. Then came the rovers. If human missions to other planets were too costly or dangerous, why not send machines instead? NASA's Mars Pathfinder mission in 1997 introduced the world to Sojourner, the first rover to explore the surface of Mars. Since then, we've seen increasingly sophisticated rovers like Spirit, Opportunity, Curiosity, and now Perseverance, each one expanding our knowledge of the Red Planet. Curiosity, which landed in 2012, has been particularly successful in its mission to search for signs of past life on Mars. It found evidence that liquid water once existed on the planet's surface, an essential ingredient for life as we know it. And now, with Perseverance and its companion helicopter Ingenuity, we're taking the next steps in Martian exploration, collecting samples that will one day be returned to Earth and testing technologies for future human missions. This brings us to today and the exciting future that lies ahead. Space agencies like NASA, ESA, and Roscosmos, as well as private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin, are developing new technologies to take humans deeper into space. Elon Musk's vision of colonizing Mars might seem like science fiction, but with each successful launch of the SpaceX Starship, we get closer to making interplanetary travel a reality. But space exploration isn't just about visiting other planets. It's about understanding our place in the universe. Projects like the James Webb Space Telescope, launched in 2021, are helping us peer into the farthest corners of space, uncovering new planets and galaxies that could one day provide answers to some of humanity's biggest questions. Are we alone in the universe? What is the fate of our planet? Can we find a new home among the stars? So, where does that leave us? As we stand on the edge of a new era in space exploration, the possibilities are limitless. We've gone from launching small rockets in the 1920s to landing rovers on distant planets, and now we're on the cusp of sending humans back to the moon and beyond. The journey of space exploration is far from over, it's only just beginning. And now, as promised, let's return to the question we posed at the beginning of this video. Could you one day stand on Mars, watching the dusty winds blow across the landscape? The answer, astonishingly, is yes. Whether it happens in your lifetime or not, humanity is on the path to becoming a multiplanetary species. The stars are within reach. All we have to do is keep reaching.